Where have you received a lifetime ban from? What did you do? Have you ever tried re-entering said place? Did you get caught? Story 1. I started college trying to expand my boundaries by doing a computer-focused new media program. We were on a quarter system, and by the middle of the first quarter, with all my classes being 2D design, film editing, a really crappy intro programming course, and other stuff I hated, I knew I wanted to transfer into a normal computer science degree. I was mentally checked out the second I got the okay to transfer programs. It was easier since I had programming experience, and the media program was part of the computer program anyway, and started finding teachers to figure out what I'd be behind on and what I'd need to catch up on that first 10 weeks. Well, when we got back to start the winter quarter, in the middle of some Halo 1 LANing on OG Xboxes, a freaking state trooper showed up to my dorm room asking to see me. I had no clue what I was in trouble for. I was the lamest of little nerds, never did anything wrong. And then it hit me. Remember how I said I had a film class that I had mentally checked out of? There was a final project we had to film, and we were instructed to use these fairly expensive HD Sony digital camcorders, think $5,000 prosumer devices, to do it. Yeah, it was sitting under my desk in my dorm room the entire break. I'd turned in the edited project, didn't even go to last week's class. The teacher knew I was transferring out and said, "You're fine," and I forgot all about this thing I had to return. So half my dorm floor escorted me to the other side of campus to return the stolen, expensive as frick camera, where the full-time employee who was in charge of millions of dollars of camera equipment proceeded to chew me out and say how I was screwed because I was banned for life and I'd never be able to complete any of my assignments, and how I better just pack up and quit now. And when he was done, I said, "Dude, I already transferred to computer science. Can I leave now?" A bunch of my friends were still photogenic kids, so I'd hang out there all the time, but he couldn't ever do anything about it because I wasn't ever trying to rent equipment. This kind of reminds me of back when I was in college. I was in cinema group, and every week or so we would put on a movie in the auditorium, and I was in charge of making the trailers for the following week's movies. However, one week I put a red band trailer, which is like R-rated and has like naughty words and suggestive scenes. I put that trailer in front of the showing for our family weekend movies. So before the kids sat down to watch Monsters, Inc. or something family-oriented, they got a red band trailer for like some Bill Hader comedy movie that was talking about like really naughty, intimate stuff. And we had parents like coming out to say stuff to us. And obviously they pulled the trailer, but it was too late at that point. They probably should have banned me from that group, or at least having that role as the trailer editor. But they were nice, and it was an honest mistake, so they let it go pretty easily. Another naughty element of working in cinema group was the projector room behind the theater was pretty private, so a lot of the guys and gals would go up there and they would play patty cake. Story 2. Slightly ashamed owner of a lifetime ban from Walmart. My idiot friends and I used to go to Walmart from time to time and play the game of who can get kicked out the fastest. My buddy pulled a pretty good stunt and got kicked out in just over a minute, so I decided for the sub 60-second mark. I sprint into the store like it's a Black Friday and they're selling 55-inch TVs for a 5 spot, and I make a beeline for the toy section. Remember those tall metal containers with the bungee cords around them containing kickballs? Target sighted. So I blew past what I assumed to be a manager as he wore the obnoxious look of abuse of authority on his face while shouting at me to slow down. I pay him no mind and approach the container. About 15 seconds in, and I know I'm on track for a win. Crouching, I spread the 2 lowest bungee cords apart, letting loose a torrent of kickballs down the main aisle. They flow out for a couple seconds before I let the cords snap back into place and promptly run along behind the balls, kicking them forward and screaming, be free, my children!" Mr. Manager Man comes around the corner and quickly adopts the slack-jawed look of complete shock on his face for a moment before recovering, turning red, and screaming at me to get the F out and never come back to my store, you little... The end of this sentence died on his tongue as he realized several other patrons were now enjoying the show. He waded through the kickballs towards me, but I quickly headed for the door before I could be forcibly removed. All the while being assaulted verbally, and rightfully if I'm being honest, by this manager. Hit the doors at a sprint and screamed, "Time!" to my shocked friends. 34 seconds, the new record. Of course, my friends thought I was lying, right up until the manager himself could be seen blazing through the door hot on my heels. Been back a few times without having a hit placed on me or anything, so I guess it worked out okay for me in the end. We were such stupid kids. Oh God, what have I become? You ever see that thing where it's like, when you're a kid, you're SpongeBob, but when you're an adult, you become Squidward? For me, this is how this story hits, especially because I've worked in retail at a grocery store, so if people just come in and make a mess for no reason other than to entertain themselves, now I guess in my adult years, I feel like I'm more of a Squidward, whereas in my younger years, I would have been the SpongeBob that was just looking at it as a fun time. Story 3. Walmart about 18 years ago. I was working as a union organizer and kept going into a Walmart to talk to workers there about the benefits of the union. I would talk to 2 or 3 people, and then a manager would catch me and kick me out. The second time I was told to not come back. But of course I did. The third, fourth, and fifth times I was charged with petty trespass. The sixth, seventh, and eighth times I was charged with petty trespass and breaching a court order. The ninth and 10th times I was charged with petty trespass and contempt of court, in court dealing with the 10th charge of petty trespass, 3 breach of court order, and 1 contempt charge. We reached a plea agreement. I consented to a lifetime ban from Walmart. The union agreed to stand surety in the amount of $10,000 for any breach of that ban in the process of conducting union business. I was given a conditional discharge on 1 count of petty trespass, and the rest of the charges were dropped. On a side note, I was arrested by the same cop every time. He and I got to know each other a bit, and until he got transferred to a different province, we used to get coffee together for a month or so and argue politics. We had some pretty interesting conversations about the role and function of police forces, the value, or lack thereof, of community oversight on police, and a really interesting debate regarding xenophobic cops. Are they created by taking non-racist cops and having them deal with a particular ethnic group all the time? Or are they already racist and just now have enough exposure to a particular ethnic group to really shine? Story 4. I caught a guy who had a lifetime ban from Disneyland when I worked there. My job was to wander around and get survey information from people for marketing purposes. Terrible job. Everyone hates you, but better pay. Usually I'd talk to people waiting outside a bathroom or waiting for the parade to start. They're too bored to hate you much. Win-win. I talked to this one couple in their early 50s, very friendly. We are building a rapport, and one of the questions is, when was the last time you came to Disneyland? Right away, the wife starts laughing and whacking her husband's arm. He seems pretty amused too, and confesses that it's his first time since he was 15, because he had a lifetime ban. Apparently, he and some friends had hopped the fence back in the early 70s, back when there was a fence you could actually do this to, and had been caught. They all got dragged down to Disney jail. Disney jail. There are so many tunnels underneath Disneyland, and had their pictures taken and given their ban. He figured it had been long enough now that he would get away with it. I entered 20 plus years on my survey and left it at that. Awesome guy. Surprised he admitted it, but they were already leaving anyway. Just to add a bit of lore to the tunnel system beneath Disneyland and Disney World, apparently they have a bunch of cats employed by Disney so that they can catch all the mice throughout the park. Kind of ironic when you think about it, given that their mascot is a mouse. Story 5. I'm banned from my hometown Chick-fil-A. In elementary school, I played baseball. Chick-fil-A was one of our regular after-game hangout spots. We would all get food and sit together and talk while the moms mingled, you know. Well, for my birthday, we happened to be mid-season. I got a new bat, and I loved it. My teammates were envious, and so I let them use my new bat when it was there to swing our next game. Then, to our surprise, we won. This had never happened before. We all somehow believed that it was all because of this magical bat. My friends and I then got in my mom's minivan and drove to Chick-fil-A to celebrate. We decided to take the bat inside to hopefully continue our good luck in some way. I still remember running uncontrollably through the big glass swinging doors, jumping in excitement before it happened. I had gone in with my cleats on eliminating any possibility of traction on the hard tile floor. So I slipped, bat in hand. The bat smashed into the soda dispenser full blast, and an assortment of carbonated beverages began flowing out uncontrollably from the machine. My mother was horrified and began apologizing, but to no use. I was banned. 2 years later, however, and without the baseball hat, I had grown up enough that they couldn't recognize me and were able to go in without being ashamed. I'm now a senior in high school, still playing some baseball, working at the same Chick-fil-A I'm theoretically banned from. They don't remember me. At first, I thought this was a silly thing to get banned from a Chick-fil-A for, but then I remembered this is Chick-fil-A we're talking about, and they have their whole history with discriminating people and speaking out against the LGBTQ community, so I guess it all adds up. Story 6. Well, it wasn't a lifetime ban, but Barnes & Noble. I rented a textbook from them, and somehow they messed up my return date, so I missed my deadline to return it, which was 2 months before my class was over. I tried to print my return sticker after the class was over and couldn't figure it out, so I called customer service, who told me my book was overdue. They refused to take the book back and charged me $106 to buy the book. I'm like, I don't want the book, take it back. They wouldn't. I told them I wouldn't pay for it since they got the return date wrong. They didn't care. They kicked me around talking to different people for like a month. Then I finally just disputed the charges. Barnes & Noble never responded to the credit card company asking about the charges, so they gave me the money back. Anyways, probably 2 years later, yes, I hadn't shopped there in that long, I tried to buy something online since someone gave me a gift card. It wasn't going through. So I called customer service. Apparently they had locked my account because I was a troublemaker. The customer service lady apparently didn't give a care and unlocked my account, so it all worked out, I suppose. Story 7. Banned from a hotel in northern Wisconsin. We were there for a wedding, and for whatever reason, everyone came to my room for the after-party, as we were all in the same hotel. And while we weren't overly loud or ruckus, unfortunately, unbeknownst to us, the block of rooms on either side of mine were reserved for guests in town for the funeral of a child. Sensing it was getting a little too loud, too late, I herded everyone outside and down to the lake about 300 yards from the hotel. This prevented me from answering dozens of phone calls from the front desk. I went to check out the next morning. The clerk asked for my room number, and when I told him, he instantly turned, well, cold. Have a good time last night? Yeah, I replied. Fun wedding. Well, it would be best if you never came here again. Ever. For any reason. Now, smile. He took out a Polaroid, this was decades ago, and took my picture and pinned it to the wall. To this day, I still feel bad, and unsure how it got to that. But it was a fun wedding. Story 8. Key Largo Houseboat Rentals, the Botel in Key Largo, Florida. My girlfriend and I went there expecting a hotel experience, just as the place advertises. Well, we got there and had to pay the week up front. It was about $800. The place turned out to be a total crap hole. The boat smelled like mold, and within the first few hours, water dumped out of the ceiling AC unit and onto my girlfriend's head. While showering the next day, the water was cut off. We decided to complain, but the owner accused us of lying about everything. We came up with an elaborate lie about how we have to leave for a family emergency and need a refund. Nope. Well, somehow my girlfriend's crazy aunt got the place's number and called to complain to the owner about how the place sucked, and we deserved a refund. That's where he caught us in the lie and kicked us out at 10 p.m. We ended up getting a refund thanks to the crazy aunt, which was nice. Story 9. Six Flags. During the long wait to the top of the stairs for the giant funnel water slide you ride down in a tube with several others, I decided rides were not worth the wait. I jumped out of my tube on the slide down and was running up the sides of the funnel and sliding down. The security got me after I did a swan dive through the tube and took me to the security headquarters and even took a mugshot. This whole ordeal lasted about 2 hours, but the cheers and glory I got from the patrons in line are everlasting. Story 10. So my group of family and friends that played Lineage 2 together got pretty tired of the game and started botting it. For those of you that don't know, botting is when you get a program to play the game for you while you sleep. You can earn a lot of extra gold and experience that way, but it is very, very frowned upon. We had the bot set up so that one guy could play the game live, and the other 10 people behind him would just aromatically attack anything he hit. Well, of course, we got reported. Guildmaster appears with an in-game character and accuses us of botting. My brother-in-law was the one playing at the time and tried to engage with the Guildmaster in a conversation to prove he was not botting. The Guildmaster walks up and smacks my brother-in-law's character. All bots turn and fire on the Guildmaster. All of us. Banned for life. Though I never played Lineage 2, it sounds a lot like many other MMORPGs. For me growing up, I played a lot of RuneScape. Best game ever. And in that game, it was pretty easy to get banned, or at least muted, if you did this one particular thing. All you had to do to get muted for a week or so was type in the chat AQP, enter, 5 spaces, and a W. With the particular font that this game used, that specific set of characters aligned perfectly in the chat to look like a wiener. And if you spammed that in the chat, you were bound to get muted, almost a rite of passage. Story 11. I personally never did, but when I was working for a big electronics retailer, yeah, that one, we banned a customer because he was abusing the return policy. We had our suspicions that the guy was a digital camera reviewer of some kind, because he kept buying cameras, not cheap ones, good expensive ones, and returning them 2 days later saying it was simply a bad product. At first we believed him. Not everyone has the same criteria when it comes to cameras. But he kept doing it, and for some models that any professional would have agreed were really good. After the 15th time, we told him he was not welcome in the store anymore. A few weeks later, we learned that he was doing the same thing at a competitor. Story 12. Placed an order for a pizza from a local pizza place. Found out they wouldn't deliver because the tenant who lived in my apartment before me bounced a check. I explained that that person had moved out. They told me the ban was on the unit number, not an individual. I called back and placed the exact same order, but had it delivered to the neighbor across the hall. Became the standard way of ordering from that pizza place. That's like that episode of Seinfeld where Elaine can't get the pizza delivered to her place because she's just outside the jurisdiction of the delivery zone, and so she pretends to live inside of a storage unit that's on the side of town that is within their jurisdiction. Actually, on second thought, I don't think it was pizza, but, the same concept applies. Story 13. Walgreens. We keep your creepy stuff private. I went to pick up a script for something that is DEA regulated, and this woman just didn't like me. She told me I looked shady and refused to fill my script and told me I was banned from all Walgreens. I never felt so judged and mistreated in my life. I went there for the medicine my doctor prescribed, and because the pharmacist had political views, she used the fact that I wasn't in my hometown against me as proof I was trying to con the sites for dope. She called me shady in front of a lot of people and made it seem like I was a criminal. Story 14. There's a crappy gym, sports club in town. I was banned from it at age 8. I went there with the scouts to do swimming or something else. All us guys came out and hated how we smelled like chlorine since the pool was caked in it. Next logical step is to use the sauna. Now this was a wet sauna. For whatever reason, they let a group of 8-year-olds use it alone. We didn't know what the heck we were doing, so a fire started. Then they banned us. Story 15. I have a lifetime ban from the Hobby Lobby in my town. I got into a huge fight with the fabric lady. The store advertised half off of seasonal fabric, so I bought this cute pumpkin pattern that was in the bin. As I went to check out, she informed me ever so rudely that Halloween wasn't seasonal, it was a holiday. This turned into a yelling match about why it was in the seasonal 50% off bin, which accumulated into me being banned, because they can't handle my realness. Story 16. R/feminism, but it's not what you think. A few days ago, I said in a post that feminists generally consider society at fault for stereotyping women, not just men, and that feminism is about teaching everyone, women included, to not hold old-fashioned stereotypes. I was banned instantly for this. Turns out this sub is run by a man who bans many feminists for having accepted or non-extremist points of view, while at the same time allowing a great number of anti-feminist posts. There are several topics on the internet dedicated to trying to get him removed, and allegations that he is doing it all to make feminism look bad. Story 17. A Barnes & Noble in North Orlando. I was with a friend who was removing the CDs from their plastic wrapping. I didn't see him doing this as I was busy trying to decide which album I was going to buy. Once I left with my purchase, my friend and another friend were already outside, but had been stopped by a security guard. They bring all 3 of us into a back room, and then a real police officer shows up and asks how they want to handle this. Since nothing was actually stolen, we were given a trespass warning and told to never come back. Story 18. Embassy Suites. Not me, but my brother. He was a young kid who had just moved to California and was trying to make ends meet. He discovered the free breakfast and free cocktails at the Embassy Suites near his apartment. Those are intended for guests, of course, but if you look like you belong in a place, people don't usually ask questions. He got away with it for 6 months before they caught him. I was very impressed. Story 19. Next Door. It's a private social network app that's based on the neighborhood you live in. I was a member and quickly realized my neighbors are stuck-up, self-righteous jerks and pointed that fact out and subsequently got my account banned. I tried creating a new account and got a message stating, "We are sorry, but Nextdoor accounts cannot be created from that address any longer." Weird thing is, my wife's account is still active from our address. Story 20. My childhood friend's house. I went over there and then she reprimanded me for pouring sand in their playset, which I genuinely didn't do. But also, who cares if I pour sand on your kid's playset? She still lives there and I see the kid sometimes. He runs everywhere and looks like he's strung out. That was a weird family. She gives me a look like I'm the devil every time she sees me. But there's sand in the potato salad. Story 21. I have a friend who was banned from a local grocery store for stealing. This was in a small town and it was the only grocery store for miles. The next day he got a call from his identical twin brother asking why he was just thrown out of a supermarket. Story 22. A particular Kroger grocery store. They didn't like two drunk guys doing whippets from the cans of whipped cream. Story 23. I'm banned from the local Burger King. In 8th grade, I, along with another kid, changed the reader board to say $3 for 2 fish dongs, or something along those lines. Needless to say, they weren't impressed. The other kid got caught and ratted me out as the sole performer, leading to me being banned, but not him. I went back a week later and enjoyed a chicken tender crisp sandwich. Story 24. James's Way. My brother and I were caught stealing a bunch of stuff, which included some albums on cassette. I want to say it was No More Tears by Ozzy. It was in a strange box, and for some reason they thought it wasn't part of the haul, so they gave it back to my brother. They told us never to come back. It's been really hard staying away all these years. Story 25. When I was 12, my friends and I went down to the roller skating hall in my town. We lit some sparklers and threw them near some propane tanks. There was no malice intended. We weren't looking where we threw them. The owner saw it, freaked out, and kicked us out, then banned us for life. Like a month later, we ended up going back. Story 26. I was asked to not return to the youth group I went to in high school. The pastor was in front of 600 teenagers, making gay jokes and making fun of mentally challenged people. So I called him out on it. He got mad. Story 27. I was arrested for shoplifting from Target back in the late 80s. I tried stealing a Nintendo Power Glove. Anyway, I was banned for life from that store, which no longer exists. But as soon as I was able, I went right back into the same store and bought a Nintendo game. No fear. Story 28. Sears. I stole candy when I was 11, and the head of security was a butthole. In my defense, I weighed a piece of candy on the scale, and it said $0, 0 cents on it. I just kept weighing the pieces one by one. I like to think I was more of a genius than a thief. Story 29. My brother has a lifetime ban from Kickstarter for trying to start a Kickstarter to raise funds to buy a Kickstarter. Story 30. I'm banned from a local liquor store because one day I was handed a bag with 2 bottles of rum inside of it, along with my regular purchase. I didn't notice until I got home, but I was accused of theft and banned from the store the next time I went there. Story 31. I'm banned for life from the Mall of America for throwing bouncy balls off of the 4th floor. I wasn't trying to hit anyone. I just wanted to see how high they would bounce. I go to the mall every couple months like a bad butt. I've never been caught. Story 32. I've got a lifetime ban from eBay because I took them to court for overcharging and taking money from me. Apparently, having the audacity to hold them to task for wrongdoings gets you a lifetime ban. Still going through the courts in the UK. Story 33. I got banned from that North Korea sub asking if this sub is real or just a joke. Because if it's real, your leader is a dip-dong. Story 34. Canada. Was deported for weapons charge once and a drug charge the second time. The second time I was told not to come back. Story 35. I got banned from a local bank branch for taking the bowl of lollipops. I went back a few weeks later to get some more lollipops and they remembered. So you robbed a bank of lollipops? One time I stole a balloon on Free Balloon Day. Story 36. A church in my town. During CCD, some kid was saying some rather vulgar things about my older sister. I punched his lights out and tried to break his head open on the ground. Story 37. My friend's house. I crapped so bad that they had to call a plumber to unclog it. They call me. My friend did that at my old apartment. We didn't ban him, but the toilet was never the same. Story 38. My ex-girlfriend's glory hole, because I told her she looked hot in an old picture of her sister. I was banned from my ex's glory hole too. Sucks, cause that is where everyone hangs out. Story 39. I was beaten up by a Bible salesman and banished from Woolworths. Not sure it was the one branch or all of them. You, smack, need, smack, Jesus, smack. Story 40. There's a pretty cool underground club in my town. The owner's girlfriend didn't tell me she had a boyfriend. Underground club, those subterranean living enthusiasts are finicky. Story 41. I can no longer drive in Virginia because I never paid a speeding ticket, since I was just driving through it to get to New York. Story 42. Wearing a kilt to a strip club is apparently frowned upon. You should have screamed, "Freedom!" while doing cartwheels. Story 43. I got banned from a Gmod City RP server. I got voted to be a police officer and kept sending mods to jail. Story 44. I got banned from r/piercing. Apparently, bunghole piercings aren't a valid suggestion. Story 45. Got banned from Club Penguin for calling someone a dong after losing a sled race. Story 46. Spain. They don't like it when you're an illegal immigrant working under the table.